Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Synthetic Native podcast. I'm here with Dan Hermansen of Osso VR, which is a virtual reality platform for training for surgery / medical devices. Dan, give us your introduction of it.
Yeah, so I'm a medical illustrator. I've been working with Osso for about a year now, and like you said, we work primarily with medical device training. Our CEO Justin, he's a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, and so the majority of our procedures right now deal with orthopedics. We are looking to expand into other healthcare fields as well, and we're definitely getting more into the education side of things. But for right now, the majority of our simulations have been medical device geared in orthopedics.
Now, I'm actually not even. I'm pretty ignorant of medical technology overall. So orthopedics is like for sort of musculoskeletal
Kind of, yeah. So
things, or
the we're described as the carpentry of surgery. So it's really the dealing with joints and bones. So hip replacements, knee replacements. It's a lot of the big open surgeries and then lots of screwing and hammering. So as far as a VR interactive platform, it's actually a lot of fun because you get to do some of those bigger movements and it's not the tiny micro neurosurgery that you would have to do in other fields.
so. I want to get into what you do specifically a little bit later, but first off, um, you know, explain a little bit about what Osso VR is, kind of generally, and why orthopedics is such a good place for y'all to kind of start.
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, one, having a CEO who is an orthopedic surgeon definitely gives us a leg up because he's got the connections, he's got the expertise and the knowledge behind it. And so we've really been able to target the needs of the industry. So right now, when it comes to introducing new medical devices into hospitals and healthcare in general, there's a kind of a waiting period. So when somebody wants to learn a new procedure, they send out a medical device rep with all of the instruments, and the medical device rep sits in the operating room and walks the surgeon through how to assemble all of these complicated medical devices. The problem with this is, one, the surgeon has never practiced with these before, so he's learning while performing the surgery, and two, which increases the amount of time on for the patient and can be detrimental. But also the medical device rep themselves gets paid almost more than the surgeon. And so what we're trying to do is become that new training platform so that the surgeon can get hands-on with the instruments in a virtual reality setting, which doesn't harm the patient at all and allows them to repetitively go through the procedure beforehand before they ever get into the operating room. So when they do get there, they're very familiar with all of the instrumentation and the process of this new procedure.
Okay, but so is it fair to say though that they'll still want to get their hands on the real thing before they do surgery, because that the controllers, whether, I don't know what platform you're on, that we can talk about that, but for a Vive, for example, it's not going to match with the actual mechanics of the device, right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's one of the benefits and the downsides of using these headsets. So we use the Oculus Rift primarily right now, and like you said, the buttons are limited. We only have certain types of interactions. A lot of these procedures use foot pedals or other things that we just simply don't have the technology for to introduce a complete, realistic procedure. The point of this is more to introduce them. It's kind of like if you had a walkthrough on IKEA furniture.
Right.
instead of busting out the crazy manual and trying to follow, insert step C into step 27, it's breaking it down into a very linear procedural walkthrough. And eventually we're going to expand out beyond just the linear simulation so that there are multiple ways to accomplish a single step, or we can explore some different analytics. But right now, that is the goal, is to get them familiarized with the procedure. But like you say, getting the hands-on and feeling the instruments, understanding all of the gears to them is still a very important part of getting familiarized with the procedure.
So it really is all about watching, like kind of maybe less about teaching very specific like muscle memory for a specific device and more about like, this is what a procedure looks like with this device.
It's a little bit of both. So we try to simulate the interaction as realistically as possible. And we've done some studies. We did a UCLA study where we ran through multiple scenarios of some people using our simulations, some people reading or watching animations, and others just being introduced to the medical devices, basically to just see the different learning curves and how quickly they were able to understand the procedure and how long they were able to retain the information. And we were very pleased with the results. I don't have the results directly with me, but there's definitely some muscle memory that exists in a VR simulation as opposed to simply watching an animation or reading about the procedure.
Yeah, I think I actually did read about. I think that might be linked on y'all's website, and I took a look. It was very interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about what you do. So you're a medical illustrator, and this is, we're not talking 2D illustrations. We're talking 3D as well, or only.
Only, actually. So besides generating materials and textures for the 3D models, all of my work is 3D currently. We are exploring the option of introducing other types of learning tools and tool tips as you're walking through the procedure as a way to expand the experience and just really make sure that everyone is understanding the different steps. But currently I work in Maya. I do all of the 3D modeling for the anatomy and the instrumentation that's used throughout our procedures.
How did you kind of fall into this work? Did you were you an artist growing up, or what was your path like?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting path. I've never heard of the field of medical illustration until about 4 years ago. And so I started off wanting to be a graphic designer, and then I just, made one of those 180 switches while I was in my undergrad and decided to go pre-med with the trajectory of wanting to be a physician's assistant. And after applying and not getting in my first round, I became an EMT. And during my EMT training, I was sketching during class. The guy next to me said, "Hey, you're really good. You should look into this," because his brother was a medical illustrator. And so after talking with my wife, we decided to change drastically again. And I ended up getting accepted to Johns Hopkins. I've been there, went to the 2-year master's program at Hopkins. And now I've been with Osso ever since. So about a year.
That's interesting. Was the Johns Hopkins program a graduate program?
It is. Yep. So it's a master's program, and there's actually only 4 master's programs in North America that offer medical illustration.
What are people's backgrounds typically that go into that?
Honestly, a lot of the stories sound very similar to mine. It's some people are a little heavier on the science side, some people on the art side, but most people find medical illustration in very roundabout ways. It's one of those fields that you don't really think about the need for until it drops into your lap and you realize, oh my gosh, somebody creates all of these illustrations and all of this software. And it really is one of those niche fields that has a very broad range of need. We work in anything from medical legal, working in law firms, to designing things for museums. There's medical journals and educational software. Like, truly, there's so many different avenues that people extend the field of medical illustration.
Okay, so it's fair to say that they are not mostly in VR, AR, XR.
No, in fact, this is very new territory, I think, in general, but in the field of medicine and medical illustrators, this is very new. So we're not only doing groundbreaking stuff in general, but in my field, when I go and meet up with other medical illustrators, this is the new hot topic that's just being explored, and we're making some real breakthroughs in our company.
Have you heard of anything not necessarily medical, but in other industries that kind of reminds you of what you do or what Osso is trying to do?
I think there are some similar approaches. I've been to a few conferences, medical simulation conferences, where everyone's looking for different solutions to this problem. How can we train surgeons better? How really can we change the way that medical education is being done? Because I think that's the ultimate goal: is where are there education gaps? How can we improve patient healthcare through the newest modern technology? I think that Osso is one of the, if not the only company that I know of that is working directly with medical device companies, and then not only working with the medical device companies, but providing it on a platform that's very affordable and easy to transport back and forth between facilities. Most of the big simulators for the really big companies, they cost upward of $200,000 for a single module that can maybe do 2 to 4 procedures. That's the beauty of our platform, is not only can you perform multiple procedures simply using an Oculus Rift, but we are constantly updating our library with new procedures and simulations. So those are immediately updated for anybody using our hardware.
It's interesting. Well, first of all, I think I'm saying it wrong. Osso is what I was saying. You're saying it.
Honestly, we get it both ways. It's not really. So some people like Osso because it sounds awesome. I speak Italian, and Osso literally means bone. So
okay,
that's my leaning toward Osso.
That's what I was thinking. I thought I had heard it as sort of a prefix that meant bone,
Yes.
like osteoporosis or something like that.
Got it. Jump back to the Latin roots.
And so the name is very, very tied to, almost tied to orthopedic practices in a way.
Yes, which we've discussed that as well, because for right now, with the current state of the company, that is perfect. It fits exactly what we do. But as we plan on expanding into other healthcare fields, I think the name could be slightly detrimental. But from all of the feedback that we've got, I don't think it'll be a problem moving forward.
Give me some insight into what y'all's kind of, to the degree that you can, or maybe you can't at all, for whatever, either because you don't know or because you can't talk about it. What is y'all's plan of attack? Like, how do you kind of plan to expand, especially coming from someone who I don't necessarily know how medical businesses work. I know there's a lot of different types and they're very, very complicated. So, but can you give any insight into sort of the business model, or maybe what you're disrupting?
Of course. For what I can. If Justin gets mad at me, then I apologize.
We won't
But
tell him.
perfect. So I think, like I say, right now, our biggest push is just expanding and making people aware of what we do. We've already partnered with two of the top medical device companies in the world. We've created simulations for them. Several other really big companies in the United States have partnered with us. We're working on simulations for them. So
let me interrupt you for just a second. How many people are just like the what? Like they just don't understand at all. Like, does that come up? Or are people really looking and aware of this sort of avenue and excited about it?
Are you talking to about medical device companies, or more on the healthcare side of things, or just people in general?
I would assume that people in general are probably, I mean, people in general are just sort of waking up to VR as it is. Yeah. But I'd really talk about, like, do you ever go to medical device companies and they're like, wow, we, never considered this before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So that's one of the beauties now, is because we have these gigantic medical device companies who we've partnered with, then our name has really been spread a lot more in, honestly, just the last 6 months. We were at the most recent AAOS conference. Forgive me for not knowing what that acronym stands for at the moment, but it was really incredible because 3 of the medical device companies that we partnered with were at that conference and showed our simulations as part of their booth. So that generated a lot of buzz around Osso and what we're doing. And since then, we've been flooded with requests, not only to have things done, but also to just learn more about what it is we actually do and what we can create, what the possibilities of this technology are. So that's been a really positive boost for our company and just for VR in general in the healthcare industry.
Okay, so I have a more important question, but first I just want to point out that it's the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Thank you. Yes.
I Googled it. So have you guys, I'm sure you have, but I'm going to ask anyway, have you guys thought about kind of flipping this, and instead of, device driven, like, here's how you use this device. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about, maybe the device is already known, or it's, you're not trying to sell the device so much as teach, a very specific sort of procedure, like a very, like, kind of more from the patient side rather than the device side?
Definitely. And that is more of the education side that we've been working on. The beauty of working with medical devices is we have an immediate dissemination route. Basically, when we partner up with a medical device company, they purchase or rent our equipment, and they are the ones who are sending it out and getting it into hospitals. When it comes to working on specific procedures that are maybe more generic and not specific to a company, then it's all on us and our marketing team and our sales team to get it into teaching hospitals and other educational facilities, which we're happy to do because I think that there's a definite need for this technology in those arenas. It's just a lot more work on our end in the marketing side of things. And so that's been a more recent push, is the generics of procedural data instead of medical device. Okay.
So you said something interesting to me, which is you send your gear or your device with them. I mean, you guys are just using Oculus Rift and Oculus Touch controls, right? Or is there some custom control you're using?
No, it's the Rift and the controls. However, the way that we have the launcher set up for all of our procedures is we have our own laptops that we've been sending out that have our software and all of the necessary permissions on the laptop. And so rather than having this available like in the Oculus store or in other platforms, it's all loaded onto a company specific launcher. We have been in talks with getting certain types of demos out onto the Oculus store that anybody could test out and experiment with. But in terms of...
Is it a security thing that you're concerned about or something like that? It's a
security thing. There's a lot of proprietary measures taken in terms of these giant companies give us a lot of proprietary information, and we need to make sure that it doesn't leak any of the models, things like that. So that's one of the security measures that's in place. And again, taking into consideration revenue by loaning out hardware, it works better for our business model at the moment. Right. I think that as we move forward, that may change, but I'm not the one who makes those decisions. So. Sure.
Yeah. No. It's and yeah. You'll probably, the nature of a startup, you'll iterate and you'll learn.
Yep.
What the right path is. So I was thinking of a scenario of like, a really rare surgery that maybe only one or two doctors in the world are an expert on, or surgeons. What if they, their time is probably very, very expensive to the point that possibly replicating it as a scenario might be cheaper than, sending them across the world to help treat very rare procedures. Is that something that you've thought about?
Definitely. I think that as we get deeper into the possibilities of educational procedures, one, we are introducing multiplayer, and the beauty of multiplayer is people can come in from anywhere, stand in the OR and indicate things. So let's say you have one of those two doctors available who has a headset, and we could actually bring that doctor into our virtual operating room, and he could point out key indicators or key concepts throughout the procedure and say, you really want to look for this. Notice, whatever detail is really specific at that step, right, which is a huge benefit to the education side of things. One of the another limitation of the technology right now is the haptic system. So, right, the Oculus touch controllers, probably the biggest haptics they have is a little bit of vibration, and the vibration can go, stronger or weaker, but that's all you're going to get. The beauty of having a hands-on model is you can feel tension. So especially in orthopedics, you are pushing on different parts of, let's say you're doing a knee surgery, you're going to push the knee one way or the other to feel, okay, is there any laxity, looseness in the joint? Do I feel any grinding? And those are movements and touch feelings that we can't simulate with the current technology. So that's one drawback. Another drawback with the technology is the ability to simulate a lot of soft tissue reaction, which is why another reason that orthopedics is such a perfect fit right now for the company, because you're dealing with a lot of hard surfaces. Bones are pretty easily manipulatable in VR, as opposed to if I'm doing a heart surgery, it's a lot more moving, for lack of a better word, squishy parts, which don't simulate quite perfectly in VR yet. There are a lot of things moving forward that are helping with that, and we're exploring all of those technologies, but it's just not quite there yet.
Okay. So have you heard of a company called Axon Vr?
I have.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to use any of their simulations, but I have seen a couple of animations of theirs.
So they do the haptic feedback. I think they have a glove now, but when I actually was at a demo for the technology at the Seattle VR meetup. Shout out to Seattle VR, and I forgot what it was. It was like a big box that I put my hand into, and it did this really awesome haptic feedback where I could, for example, put a spider on my hand and feel each of its 8 legs individually crawling across my hand. It was really, really cool.
Yes, I think I actually watched if you're the one who posted the video of it, but I saw this video and it's incredible.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, I think that one of their main obstacles, and I don't, I could be completely wrong, but I imagine it's making that, affordable and really productizing it or whatever. Yes. So I don't know how close y'all could be to marrying those technologies, but it seems like it could be very cool and useful.
Honestly, and we say it all the time, the person who can crack the haptic glove is going to change VR, because that opens up so many new avenues and really takes the immersive quality of VR to the next level. And in healthcare, there's no better substitute than being able to get your hands on and feel different textures and in those scenarios that I explained before. So looking at the glove that Axon has created, I think it's amazing. But again, it comes down to a lot of that. How portable is it? How affordable is it? And how comfortable will users feel using it? So we're sending this out to surgeons, a lot of whom have never tried on a headset. So that's already a very new experience to them. Then taking it to the next level and getting them all suited up, that's just one more thing we have to keep in mind is who is our audience and how are they going to feel about the whole experience.
Yeah, and maybe gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, maybe these companies that are not companies, this industry that, the medical industry, there's a lot of money in it, right? People are willing to spend a shit ton of money on training for these devices. You can imagine a scenario in which, maybe this glove isn't, cheap enough for a consumer. Maybe it's only affordable for these types of scenarios, but it adds so much fidelity that it's worth it.
Yeah. And I think that we as a company would be willing to make that investment if it provides a level of education that we think is worth the expenditure. Like, right. I don't see any reason to hold back if the technology meets our needs.
Right. We've mentioned education a lot. So I think a lot of it has been education just in the more general sense of the word of just like teaching people about things. But what about the education system, like medical school how does that intersect with your product in the future, maybe? So
amazingly, this is, I think, Justin's ultimate goal is he saw such a gap from his time in medical school, because the procedures that he was learning during his first 4 years of medical school, they are antiquated by the time he actually gets into practice. And so really it's like there's this huge education gap right there, where now you're getting into actual procedures and you're completely unfamiliar with the new hardware that's come out, the new steps. Things have changed drastically. And so he saw this problem, and that's one of the main reasons he created Osso VR, is to not only train on new devices that are coming out for seasoned surgeons, but also to try and close that education gap, because this platform allows people to stay up on the latest technology regularly, rather than trying to play catch up once you're out of your residency.
what about dental devices? Has that come up?
Not to my knowledge. I think there's a lot of possibility there, and it makes a lot of sense in VR. Um, but I don't think that Osso has explored into dental yet.
Okay. It just popped up in my head.
Yep.
So yeah, this is incredible. Outside of Osso, is there anything you're particularly excited about in VR or in technology in general?
Honestly, my focus is very similar to Justin's in just changing the education landscape in general. I think that the possibilities of VR in education have not even scratched the surface. Um, in terms of, we look at the education system right now. Some people love it, some people hate it. And there's so many different options as far as public, private, charter, you name it. And then you go into the online platform, which in a lot of ways has been very good. It's opening up education to more people and not requiring them to relocate for education. Saves a lot of costs, but the problem is you're sacrificing a lot of the social interaction that's involved in education.
Right.
I think that virtual reality really has the possibility of merging the two, where you can still have the social interaction and the collaboration between students, but you also can do it from the comfort of your own home or really anywhere. It opens up that possibility, and you can create virtual worlds where, you can explore anything. You can, I think back to my organic chemistry courses, which were just the worst. But then I picture organic chemistry in virtual reality and it just explodes. It opens up so many possibilities to really understand how our world works, because you can take something that is so small and complex and blow it up and really dissect it down to a level that just illuminates the material better than any other way that I've ever seen. So that's what I'm excited about, is just the education platform as a whole.
Yeah, it can really make it pop.
Yes.
As graphic designers understand. Okay, well, Dan, this was really awesome. How can people? Well, if you want people to reach you, how can they reach you? Do you have a Twitter handle? But more broadly, how can people reach Osso VR?
Definitely go and look at our website. It's just ossovr.com. That's OSSOVR.com. A lot of our information and videos are up on the site there. For me personally, I need to be much better about actually using my Twitter handle. So I would say reaching out to our company. And if you wanted to get in touch with me specifically, my email is there, available on the website. If you have any questions about medical illustration or any of the medical illustration programs that are available, I'm happy to answer any questions, because we're always looking to bring in new talent. I think that it's an incredible field, and I'm excited to see more and more medical illustrators get into virtual reality.
Oh, cool. So Osso VR is hiring.
Osso VR recently hired a couple new medical illustrators, and as we're continuing to expand, I think more and more options are going to become available.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Thanks so much, Dan.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.